Pointless. That single word is what Elon Musk used to shut down the idea of a cheap Tesla, and almost everyone who heard it walked away with the wrong conclusion. People assumed he was defending high prices, protecting margins, telling the world that affordable cars were beneath the company. That is not what was being rejected. The target of that word was not the price tag at all. It was the method every other automaker uses to reach a low price in the first place. Here is the difference that changes everything. When a traditional car maker wants to sell something cheaper, the process is almost always subtraction. Take a good car, remove the good parts, sell what is left. Thinner steel here, a smaller engine there, less sound insulation, a suspension tuned by someone watching a spreadsheet instead of driving a road. The customer gets a car that feels exactly like what it is, which is a compromised version of something better that existed somewhere else on the same lot. Tesla decided to go a completely different direction, and it is a direction that sounds almost impossible when it is said out loud. The goal was never to build a cheaper car. The goal was to build the same car for less money. Those two sentences look similar enough that most people read right past the gap between them. But that gap is the entire story. One approach makes the product worse. The other approach makes the process cheaper and leaves the product where it was. That raises a question that engineers have been circling for decades without a clean answer. How does a company take a vehicle that costs a certain amount to produce and drop that number below the price of a Honda Civic, without touching the one system nobody is allowed to touch? Because a car has one job that outranks every other job it has. When something goes wrong at highway speed, the structure around the person inside has to hold. Cut there, and the savings stop being savings. So the money has to come from somewhere else. And that somewhere else is not a place most buyers ever think about. It is not the badge, not the paint, not the wheels. It is the invisible layer underneath everything, the part of a car that exists purely because of how factories were built in the 20th century. Every weld, every rivet, every robot arm swinging into position, every human standing on a line for 8 hours attaching brackets to brackets, all of it costs money that ends up on the sticker. That is the actual battlefield here, and it explains why the word pointless was aimed at an entire industry instead of at a price. Removing features to hit a number is the easy version. Redesigning, where the money leaks out of the building before the car is even finished, is the hard version. And it is the version that has a very specific starting point. It starts with a man taking a Model 3 apart in a workshop, staring at the back end of it, and counting something that made no sense at all. Sandy Munro built a career out of tearing vehicles down to the last bolt and telling the world what he found, and the back end of an early Model 3 gave him something worth talking about for years. Behind the rear seats, in the section that ties the suspension, the floor, and the crash structure together, he counted more than 120 separate pieces of metal, stamped, bent, welded, riveted, glued, bolted. 120 individual components doing the work of holding a single region of the car together. Picture what that means on a factory floor. Every one of those pieces has to be manufactured somewhere, shipped somewhere, stored somewhere, picked up by something, positioned within a fraction of a millimeter, and joined to the piece next to it. Multiply that by the number of joints required, and the number grows into the hundreds. Each joint is a place where heat goes into metal, and heat going into metal is a place where metal moves in ways nobody asked it to move. Now walk into the Austin factory and look at the same region of a Model Y coming down the line. That entire section, the one that used to be an assembly of 120 parts, arrives as a single object. Molten aluminum enters a mold under enormous pressure, fills every channel, cools, and gets pulled out finished. The cycle takes less than a second of actual injection time. What comes out is not a collection of parts waiting to become a structure. It is already the structure. Munro had a word for it that stuck. He did not call it a part, or a component, or an assembly. He called it a stone. The name fits because a stone has no seams to drift, no tolerances stacking on top of each other, no joint that was slightly off on Tuesday afternoon. A welded assembly of 100 pieces can vary from one car to the next in ways that are technically within spec and still add up to panel gaps owners notice. A casting comes out of the machine identical every time because the mold does not have opinions. The financial consequence of that is where a buyer starts to feel it. Fewer parts means fewer suppliers to pay, fewer trucks to unload, fewer racks of inventory sitting in a building that costs money to heat. It means fewer robots buying floor space and drawing power to make welds that no longer need to exist. It means fewer people standing on a line doing repetitive work, and labor on an automotive assembly line is not cheap in any country where these cars get built. And there is a quieter cost that disappears along with all of that, one that rarely gets discussed outside of manufacturing circles. Every joint that does not exist is a joint that cannot fail inspection, cannot require rework, cannot send a body shell off the line into a repair bay where technicians grind and redo the work while the clock runs. Scrap costs money. Rework costs more. Removing the opportunity for the mistake is cheaper than getting good at fixing it, which is the logic that was supposed to carry into a second innovation entirely. That second innovation arrived on a stage in March of 2023, and it came with a promise big enough to reshape what a factory even looks like. Tesla called it the unboxed process, and the name describes the idea well. Instead of building a body shell and then carrying that shell through a building while workers reach inside a metal box to install everything, the vehicle gets built as separate chunks. Front section, rear section, floor with the battery pack, side panels, all assembled in parallel while they are still open and accessible. The appeal of that becomes obvious the moment anyone has tried to work inside a finished car body. Reaching through a door, opening to install a headliner, or thread wiring behind a dashboard is slow, awkward work that machines struggle with and humans dislike. Build those regions flat and open, with tools coming at them from any angle, and suddenly automation gets easier and the work goes faster. Only at the end do the finished modules come together and get joined into a complete vehicle. The number attached to that promise is what made the industry pay attention. Tesla claimed the approach could cut the required factory footprint by as much as 40%. Factory space is not a small line item. Buildings cost money to construct, to light, to heat, to cool, to staff, to maintain. Shrinking the building shrinks the capital tied up in every single unit that rolls out of it. And that saving shows up long before anyone talks about materials or features. Here is where expectations and reality separate, and where a lot of coverage has quietly blurred the line. Gigacasting is real, running, and already producing structures in high volume across multiple factories. The unboxed process is a different thing on a different timeline. Right now, it is being applied to the Cybertruck, a low-volume vehicle built on its own line with its own peculiarities, and it has not been rolled out to the vehicles that most buyers are actually waiting for, which creates a genuinely strange situation. The manufacturing method that was announced as the key to building an affordable Tesla is not the method building the affordable Tesla. The savings everyone attributed to unboxed assembly cannot be showing up on a car that is not built that way. Whatever is bringing the price down on the standard trims sitting in showrooms right now is coming from somewhere else entirely. And that somewhere else has not been getting much attention. Money does not evaporate off a sticker price because a company wants it to. Every dollar removed from what a customer pays has to be removed from a real cost somewhere in the chain, or absorbed as a smaller margin, or recovered later through some other channel. Tesla is not running a charity operation, and the numbers in its own filings make that clear. So the honest way to find the answer is to stop guessing at factory diagrams and start looking at what physically changed on the car itself. Park a Model 3 Premium next to the new standard trim and start counting from the outside in, because the changes begin before anyone opens a door. The rear passenger screen is gone. The small display mounted behind the center console that let people in back control temperature and media. Ambient lighting is gone, the strip of illumination that traced the dashboard and doors at night. The audio system drops to 7 speakers, and the subwoofer that gave the sound its low end is no longer part of the package. Slide inside, and the subtractions continue in places hands actually touch. The vegan leather upholstery has been replaced by cloth and fabric inserts across the seating surfaces. Reach into the door pocket of a Model Y Standard, and the fingers meet hard plastic, where the premium version lined that same pocket with carpet to keep items from rattling. AM and FM radio have been removed entirely, and autosteer, once bundled into the purchase, now sits behind a separate monthly payment. One change sits underneath the car where nobody can see it, and it matters more than anything on the features list. Tesla previously promoted frequency-selective damping as a meaningful ride quality advance, with Lars Moravy describing it in terms of isolating the shake frequencies a person feels in the stomach. Suspension hardware is one of the first places engineers look when a cost target needs to be met, because the parts are expensive and the difference is subtle enough that most buyers on a short test drive will never register it. Then there is the result nobody predicted, which came from owners rather than press releases. People who have driven both versions, including long-standing members of Tesla owner communities, report that the cloth seats in the Standard are more comfortable on long drives than the vegan leather ones in the Premium. The aggressive side bolsters on the higher trim press into the hips over time. A cheaper material ended up producing a better experience for a portion of the people sitting in it. Now for the part of the list that stayed exactly where it was. The crash structure is unchanged. Battery protection is unchanged. The airbag system is unchanged. Same platform underneath. Same reinforcement in the same places. Same IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus rating carried across the trims. Nothing structural was thinned, shortened, or removed to hit the lower number, which is precisely the distinction that separates this approach from the traditional method of building down to a price. That is the honest shape of what happened here. The skeleton was left intact, and the jacket came off. Screens, speakers, lighting, upholstery, radio hardware, and a software feature moved to subscription, all of it stacked together into a meaningful reduction without touching the systems that decide what happens during an impact, which leaves one loose thread hanging, because there is a widespread assumption about those enormous castings that has been repeated so often it hardened into fact, and real-world data has now had time to test it. The assumption goes like this. A giant single-piece casting cannot be repaired, so any impact to that region turns into a replacement of the entire structure, which turns into an insurance write-off on a car that would have been fixable if it had been welded together from smaller pieces. It sounds logical. It has been repeated in forums, in comment sections, and in serious industry commentary for years, and for a long time, nobody had enough real claims to check it. Thatcham Research spent 2 years collecting exactly that. The organization is a UK-based body that studies crash repair and feeds its findings to the insurance industry, and it has no stake in whether Tesla succeeds or fails. Its data comes from actual repairs on actual damaged vehicles, not from laboratory estimates or theoretical teardown models. When the numbers came back, they pointed the opposite direction from the assumption almost everyone had been carrying. Repairing the Gigacast rear section on a Model Y came in around $2,700 cheaper than repairing the traditional welded rear end of a Model 3. The reasoning behind that becomes clearer once the repair process is examined instead of imagined. A welded assembly damaged in a collision requires cutting out the damaged panels, sourcing replacements, aligning them, welding them back, and hoping the surrounding structure did not shift. A casting can be sectioned and repaired with defined procedures, and there is far less hidden distortion spreading through joints that no longer exist. The rest of the answer sits in Tesla's own financial reporting, in two lines that most readers skim past. The first states that cost per vehicle declined, driven in part by cheaper materials. The second states that ancillary revenue increased, with the growth attributed mainly to full self-driving subscriptions. Those two lines placed next to each other describe a business model, not an accounting detail. Tesla now has close to 1.3 million paying FSD customers, and the meaningful part of that figure is where the recent growth came from. Most of it is people paying monthly, rather than buying the software outright. A one-time purchase is a single event on a balance sheet. A monthly subscription is a payment that continues for as long as the car is owned, and it continues from the second owner too, and from the third, in a way a one-time sale never does. That reframes what the sticker price actually represents. The vehicle functions as the entry point, and a company perfectly willing to discount that entry point is a company confident about what gets sold afterward. Cheaper materials reduce the cost of getting a car into a driveway, and recurring software revenue accumulates for years once it is there, which puts every current Tesla owner in an unusual position, because a cheaper version entering the lineup does something specific to the value of the one already parked outside. History has been brutally consistent on this point. Every time Tesla has cut the price of a new vehicle over the past several years, used values for that same model dropped within weeks, sometimes within days. The mechanism is not complicated. A used car is only worth what it is worth relative to the new one sitting in the showroom. And when the new one gets cheaper, everything behind it slides down to stay in proportion. Cox Automotive, which tracks used vehicle pricing as its core business, has been signaling for a while that electric vehicle resale values are likely to stay unstable through the short and medium term. Their reasoning covers rapid technology turnover, battery chemistry changes, and shifting incentives, all of which make a 3-year-old electric car harder to price than a 3-year-old gasoline car. A genuinely cheaper Tesla arriving in the lineup fits that pattern perfectly, and on paper, it should pull existing values down with it. Then the 2026 data arrived and complicated the story in a way almost nobody expected. Used electric vehicle inventory has tightened significantly, with supply down close to 19% year over year. Fewer used electric cars are reaching the market, and the ones that do are finding buyers faster. Scarcity started applying upward pressure at precisely the moment that price cuts were supposed to be applying downward pressure. The clearest example of that shows up in the Model S and Model X. Used prices for both have climbed roughly 10% since late 2025, which runs against everything the resale trend was supposed to do. The reason is simple once it is stated. Tesla stopped building them. When production of a vehicle ends, the used ones already on the road become the only way anyone can obtain that vehicle, and demand concentrates onto a pool that can never grow again. Which turns the question every owner is quietly asking into something different from what it first appeared to be. The threat to a fully equipped Model 3 or Model Y